Hey guys, welcome to Running Reimagined. For those of you that don't know, my name is Dylan Hopper. Running Reimagined goes live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and we talk specifically about your questions and how we can overcome your questions. So I'm really excited about this morning's show. We are talking about 7 key workouts that you can be able to implement directly into your training to start to build kind of a faster kick at the end of a race. Today's show has come to you because a Running Reimagined follower had messaged me and had asked me, I guess their scenario is they've been struggling to be able to finish races faster. They get to the end of the race and they just don't seem to have anything left. And I think there's 2 things that could be happening. One, it's the strategy of how the race is played out. And then 2, it could be the workout and the training building up into that race. So that's what today's episode's all about. If you don't mind, let me know you're here. I love having a 2-way conversation, letting people know who's actually watching. So I'm going to go down here on my computer and refresh it so I can be able to pull up the video so I can see comments and stuff right here so I can see what you guys are saying. So I'm excited. Other announcements. Also, I attached the link in the description above. The link will take you to a calendar setup where you can be able to set up a 20-minute call with me going over anything you want running related. I want to be able to do this to really help people set up kind of a successful 2018, start thinking about those races next year, and then how you want to be able to set those up. So I put aside time. It's free, a free 20-minute call. Feel free to go on to that link and go ahead and do that. So, all right, so let's get started here. So, first of all, again, this person who had messaged me had said they get to the end of the race and they just don't seem to have anything left. And it could be 2 things. It could be a strategic thing, or it also could be a training thing, something in their training that needs to be implemented. And so here's 7 different workouts. They're very different workouts. They can be implemented at different times, different phases of the training cycles. But I think it's important that speed, I think, is something that is kind of overhyped in the sense of that we need to do speed work, and there always needs to be speed work within the training. I think that the important thing is that you're building a runner for a long time and for a lifetime. And so in order to do that, by being patient and doing more strength type training to get yourself there, you're going to be that runner at the end of the race, and then you're also going to be injury-free by the end of the race if you build to that runner, but it may take a few years to get there. I think that is kind of the long process, which can get you, to your goal kind of in a stronger way where you're building more of a foundation. But again, I'm gonna give you some workouts. Some of them are going to be very speed endurance type workouts, and then other ones are going to be a little bit more strength workouts, which you're not going to see the immediate effect from, but after a long time of putting in the work and really putting in the miles of being a skilled runner, then that's when you'll start to see the difference. So the first. Let's see here. Sorry, I just wanted to be able to pull that up. All right, I got it up. So the first tip is strides. And I've talked about strides several times on the show. I've created video about strides. So I'm going to go over them real briefly. But the important thing about strides is that you're practicing perfect form, and it's a very intentional action. You're not just going through the motion. I think that's a common mistake that a lot of runners make, is they see strides on their training program at the end of a workout or the end of a run, and then they just kind of go through the motions and their form's all over the place and they're not really focused on what they're doing. So by using strides and really focusing on your form, what you're doing is you're building that skill and that myelin in your brain. So that when you get into the race, your stride is actually going to be more efficient because you've practiced these habits, and then these habits are going to be ingrained in your body. Kind of talking about that, I'm going to briefly go over strides only because I've gone over them so many times before. It's a proper stride talks about the acceleration phase, the peak phase, and then also the deceleration phase. So what the acceleration phase is, it's important that when you go into a stride, it's not just a straight sprint where you just burst into it, because a lot of times you can end up with torn muscles or tweaked muscles, and then that's going to be no good for you. So what is important is that you take this phase as an acceleration. So this is going to be a slow effort. If you've ever seen sprinters come out of the blocks, they when they come out of that 100 meters, their heads down, they pop up, and then they slowly rise all the way out of it. You kind of want to think about that. You're not necessarily bursting out of the blocks like a sprinter, but you're kind of slowly rising. So those first few steps are real slow. You're almost starting at a walk, and then you just build into it. And what you're going to do is you're going to build up to a certain effort level, and then after that effort level, then you're going to be going into, like, say, the peak phase. So you're going to be building up to, say, like a 60% effort level, and then the peak phase is going to take you from a 60% to an 80, 85%. And that's what's next. And the peak phase is really important when you go into those faster speeds, that you're really focused on solid form as you go through it, because the form that you implement in that peak phase is the form that will is gonna show up in races. So go through that peak phase and then the deceleration phase. Another common mistake that I see runners make is that when they go into the deceleration phase, they just stop immediately. And it's important that you take the time to slow back down, because you just built your body up to a certain speed, and as you come back down, a lot of times if you come back and stop right away, your body is going to be jamming. So you're going to be in order to slow down, a lot of times you're going to be sticking your heel out, and your heel is going to be jamming into the ground. And what's going to happen is that energy is going to be shooting straight up your leg into your knees and your hips, and a lot of times that's when you'll have issues. So it's really important to take that deceleration phase. Now, how can you use these strides almost as a workout to make you better? What you can do is you do about 3 to 4 strides where it's a slow build-up, where you're only pushing about 60% effort, 70% effort, and then 80% effort. And then once you do that, take a real short break, but keep your muscles warm, maybe do some light jogging, and then go into about 4 strides where your peak phase is going to be a real solid 80 to 90% effort, where you're really kind of pushing pretty hard. What that's going to do, you're tapping into kind of those fast twitch muscles. This is something that really needs to be done kind of at the championship phase, I like to call it, at the of your season. So this is the last 4 weeks, 3-4 weeks of your season before your big race. So this is the last 3-4 weeks before your big race. This is when you could do a workout like this, but building a little bit of those fast twitch muscles can be able to translate into faster finishes in your race. So that's the first tip, strides. I think everybody uses them. How you use them will be the difference between how you finish, if you finish poorly or if you finish fast. I think that's the important thing with strides. Tip number 2, simulated finishes. So I got this tip from a club coach who was a club coach in Seattle, and I was really fortunate because eventually she became a head coach at a Division II university here in the States. But she was able to coach me as I was preparing for these junior Olympic cross-country races, and we had gone over a very similar thing in terms of trying to be able to build a kick and finish stronger at the end of a race. And so by using simulated finishes, what this is and what she had taught me was to be able to go through your run and then think about it. Whenever you go through a race, usually this is for the shorter distances. This isn't necessarily for your half marathon or your marathon, but maybe like 10K, 5K, and below. You want to be able to, if you're really racing it for time, or place, really have picked out, a B kind of finish point, or a long kick point, and then a short kick point. So what that means is that as you go through your race, you'll maybe have around 400 meters left in the race. And again, these are your shorter races. You'll have that long kick point where you're going to start to build kind of into your fast kick. So you're going to start to build that momentum a little bit faster, knowing that you don't have much time left on your legs. And then once you get to that short kick, then you're really going to turn over and try to catch as many people as you can and try to make up that little bit of time that you can at the end of a race. So having said that, what this is basically simulating a finish of a race. So you can be able to use this as kind of your easy run or even your moderate run. This is something you can maybe do once a week, kind of as you start to prepare maybe your last kind of 7 weeks of before your big event. You can be able to use this workout maybe once a week where you're finishing your run, and as you get about 400 meters out or a quarter mile out, you start to build into kind of a faster finish. So you're going to start to build from kind of an easier effort or a moderate effort into a real good kind of tempo where you're still not going race pace, but it's much closer to race pace. And then once you get to that shorter kick, then you're really going to put in that extra burst. Again, practicing good form, just like a stride, all the way to the end of your run, and not finishing right at the finish line, but slow, decelerating all the way through again. But this is one thing that you can be able to do as you get to the end of your easy moderate runs, which will inject a little bit of speed, help you build kind of a little bit of those fast twitch muscles, those patterns, those habits, which are going to translate to stronger finishes at the end of a race. Yeah, so again, when you go into that short burst, you're not going your 100% race effort. You're still maybe 5-10% off, because it's important that this is training. This isn't the race, and you don't want to get hurt in training. And so if you take a little bit off it, be able to finish strong, it can be a great tool to finishing faster at the end of a race, especially in those shorter distances from 10K down. All right, tip number 3. I love tip number 3. It's one of kind of my personal favorites, because it was something that I had heard, I think it was either in an article or a documentary, but it was from a Hall of Fame wide receiver, Jerry Rice. So I took this tip having read or watched, I honestly don't know, it was so long ago, but I heard that Jerry Rice uses trail runs to practice his route running and his speed explosion out of routes. And I was like, well, okay, well, so if this can make an NFL wide receiver faster, how could I be able to take this and make me faster, especially as I was a much more middle distance runner when I was really competitive in high school and college. So how could I be able to take this and make this a distance workout? So what I did was I also used trails, and what Jerry did was he would be running into it in a trail, and it would be much more technical trails. So this isn't your straight trail that's just a smooth path all the way. There's a lot of tight twists and turns. A lot of times if you can find single track trails, it'll be perfect because the single track trails aren't straight. But what you're going to do is you're going to be running. This is going to be kind of an easy to moderate effort as you're running through the trails. It's going to be very similar to like a fartlek type workout, where you're going to have some speed play in there. So you're going to be running into a turn, and then as you come out of a turn, you're going to have a quick 10 to 15 meter acceleration. And so what Jerry did was he would go into a turn and he would have a hard plant and then explode out. I don't think as distance runners we need to do that. I think we'd have a lot of injuries if we tried to do that. But what we're going to do is we're going to go into the turn, and then as we come out of the turn, we're going to have a quick 10 to 15 meter acceleration. We're not quite having the same plant and explosion out of it, but we don't need that explosion. That explosion really doesn't serve us any good. But what this is good for is as you go through a run, especially if you're trying to be pretty competitive, and you're trying to match the same pace of, say, like a pace group, or maybe certain runners that you know are in your age group, and they start to accelerate, this can really start to prepare you for those speed changes throughout a race, because we all know, based on terrain and everything else, that as nice as it would be to run a a race even pace all the way through. It just doesn't happen. Especially if you're a little bit more competitive and you're trying to win your age groups. This is a great workout for that. So what you're going to do, get a proper warm up in, maybe 10, 15 minutes of good warm up jogging where you're just easy jogging, do some dynamic drills and stretches. And then after that, go into this workout. I would do something like this for maybe 20 minutes, because it is pretty taxing in terms of the explosion out of it. You're not doing quite the same burst, plant and burst, but just doing that much repetition, you will feel this. So do be careful and make sure that you pay attention to how this will fit you. So maybe you only do this for 5 or 10 minutes, and that works for you, and that's great. And then as you build up over time, you can do it for longer. But this is a really great workout to start to adapt to those speed changes throughout a race, and then also finishing stronger at the end of a race. All right, tip number 4. This one came from when I ran at the University of Arizona, and it's a really great way. I've seen some world-class runners use this workout to be able to build speed at the end of a race. And again, this is something that needs to be implemented in the championship phase, as I like to call it. So you have your big race date, go backwards about maybe 4 or 5 weeks, then you can start to implement something like this. But what this is you really want to be able to do this on a track. So make sure that you finish, this is on workout days, so make sure you finish your workout on a track. And what you're going to do once you're done, go through, continue to stay warm but recovered. So maybe you do some laps of real easy jogging, but make sure you stay warm. Once you start to feel that heart rate come down and you start to feel yourself recover a little bit, what you're going to do, this is very much speed play, and this is something that you very much need to be careful of, because you have a much higher risk of injury as you start to play with some of these increased paces a little bit. So, but really what this is you're going to take 150, 200, and 300 meters. You can choose the distance based on what your goal distance is and kind of what fits in your training. But what this is taking it, say 200 meters, and you're going to run that 200 meters at a pretty quick effort. This would be similar to like strides as I talked about in the first one, but this is a much faster effort. It's a much quicker pace. And it depends on what you're doing, what your ultimate race goal is. But this is something that you can definitely implement to be able to build that speed. So you're going to do 4 times, say 200 meters, 3 to 4 times 200 meters or 300 meters. And what you're going to do is, again, you're going to not start out with an immediate burst, start out with kind of that slower buildup, but after about 50 meters, you're already going to be pushing that 80 to 85% effort and really focusing on that nice relaxed form as you go through, because it's not, practice doesn't make perfect, it's perfect practice that makes perfect, and really trying to practice with intention and deliberate action of proper form. Because if you can be able to do this at the end of these workouts, because you're really, really tired, you literally just did a workout, so then you're going to be doing this effort, and if you can be able to do this holding good form, it's really going to make you a much more efficient runner when you get to the race. Because your body is going to understand and know how to move in an efficient way. So, again, be careful with this one, because this is one that it really needs to be implemented correctly within your training, and it needs to be towards the end of your training. You've already done your base phase, you kind of have your mid-season phase, and then your championship phase where you're building up to your big event. This is something that you can be able to do to make you a much stronger runner at the end. But again, it's very important because you are playing with those higher speeds, and anytime you start to play or increase yourself with those higher speeds, your risk of injury goes up significantly. All right, tip number 5, or key workout number 5, I should say, for this one is hill busters. So what this is using hills to be able to practice strength and endurance. And hills are so great for training in so many ways. one, it's a lot harder to get hurt running up a hill as opposed to running down a hill or even flat ground. Why? Because you're not having the same impact as you run up a hill. When you run down a hill, all your weight, all your momentum is falling forward. When you're running up, you don't have that same momentum as you go through that cycle. So what you're going to do, this hill buster type workout, this isn't going to be your longer hills where you're doing maybe a mile or more on an interval session. What this is going to be more about 50 meters, and it's essentially going to be very similar to the strides again, where you're practicing good form, but it's a much quicker effort as you go up this. So you're going to start out a little bit slower, and then maybe about 10, 15, 20 meters in, then you're already going to be in that peak phase, and then you get up to the 50 meter mark, and then you decelerate as you get towards the top, which you won't need much time to decelerate because you're going up a hill. And again, this should be a pretty good gradient. This shouldn't be crazy steep straight up and down, but it should be a pretty good gradient. It shouldn't be looking more like a false flat. It should be something that's pretty steep that definitely tests your effort. But what this does, hill running is a great way to build strength. And then also endurance. And so this is kind of mixing a speed element in there. You can be able to use this workout. I wouldn't use it in your base phase. I'd use this more in kind of your mid-season to end of season phase. But when used correctly, this can be a great workout for you. All right, tip number 6, key workout number 6 is a progression run. So progression runs, everybody's heard of them. They're excellent. They're outstanding. What you can be able to use it for, you can use this really at any time of your training. But what this is starting out real slow and then building your pace throughout the entire run. This is a little bit, say, like your moderate distance type of run. What you're going to do is every single mile, every single mile is going to be a little bit faster. So you're starting out real slow, and then you're just building over time, and then by the end of it, you're running a pretty good tempo. But you took a long time to get there. Progression runs can be a great way to build you up as a much faster runner. This is one of those workouts that you're not going to see that quick, immediate implement or action, I guess, in your training where you immediately become faster. But it's something that over the course of time, you'll become a much faster runner, and you'll be able to finish your races at a much faster effort, a much more efficient effort by using these workouts. But it's a great workout that you can be able to use for a long time, and you can use kind of at any stage of your training leading up to your big race. Tip number 7, and this is kind of my last tip, and this is for, or key workout, this is for really anyone who doesn't normally get on the track. So if you're trying to improve your speed at the end of your race, something that you can do is to be able to get on your track. I know locally where I am in Seattle, and I know kind of all over the US, they have what are called all-comer meets or open meets, and what they are is they're track meets that are open to anybody. And how you can use them, and again, I always talk about using races as tools because one is it's fun to get into a race. It's much more fun to get into a race than do a workout. And then 2, there's so many different simulations that you can run that you can't necessarily run in a workout. And so what you're going to do is you're going to go out and you're going to race a distance that's much shorter than what your ultimate race distance is. Why? Because there's a couple different types of training that you can be able to do. There's over distance under speed, and then there's under distance over speed. And what this is something that's very much under distance over speed. So you have a race distance that's say a half marathon or a 10K, and by using this, you're going to be running a much shorter distance, but you're going to be doing it at a much faster effort. And by running these quicker races, you're going to be able to build those fast twitch muscles. Again, it's really important that you warm up properly into these races, and that as you go into these races, you don't shoot out like a bat out of hell, because a lot of times that can cause injury issues, especially when you're not used to running on kind of those faster efforts. but it can be a really, really fun way to do it. You can have a chance to get out on a track. Really, they're rather inexpensive. I know around where I am right now, I had signed up this past summer. They had, I think it was $5 for a race or $30 for the season. And so really, they're pretty inexpensive. I've looked at the cost across the U.S., and I know they're pretty expensive. I'm sure there's races in the country that you're in as well, and you can be able to use these races to help kind of build a kick at the end of a race. I would use this as kind of one of your workout days, but it can be a great way to help kind of build yourself to be a faster runner at the end of a race. So that's kind of the key 7 workouts that I have that you can be able to do, that you can directly implement into making yourself kind of a faster runner at the end of a race. Again, speed is a funny thing. It's one of those things that really you need. It's important to build a solid foundation and almost use, understand that it could take a few years to build a strong efficient runner over time. And then once a few years down the road, you're going to be able to be that runner that's blowing past people at the end of a race. But again, there's some of these workouts you can be able to implement directly, which will improve some of those fast twitch muscles. But I really would push kind of the long-term benefit of trying to build a strong runner. And then when you use these fast twitch workouts, to make sure that they're implemented properly, because anytime you go higher up in speed, your risk of injury is that much more. So again, summarizing all the key workouts, number 1 is just drills and strides. It's something that we've all done, we all know about, and really it's like I had talked about in terms of a workout itself. You have 4 strides that are pretty slow, and they're much more just kind of warming up. You use this after, say, your easy or moderate run. 4 strides that are pretty easy efforts, just really focusing on good form. And then after that, you have 4 much quicker strides where you have an acceleration phase, a peak phase, and a deceleration phase. But that peak phase, you're tapping into about 80 to 90% effort. It's a much quicker effort, and if you can be able to do that, that can be a great way to make you faster at the end of a workout. The key workout number 2, again, we're just summarizing all of these, was a simulated finish. Get to the end of, say, your run and you have about 400 meters left. What you're going to do is you're going to start to pick up that pace, and really build until you get about 75, meters left, and then really simulate the end of a race. You're not going to quite tap into that same speed, maybe take, 5-10% effort off of that, but really simulate the end of a race. If you can be able to do that, it can be a great way to start to build yourself up as a faster runner at the end of a race. Tip number 3 was one of my favorite kind of workouts. It's much more of a fartlek. I got it from Hall of Fame wide receiver Jerry Rice. I took and read about some things that he does, and then I had basically turned this into an endurance running workout. And what that is just running on some technical trails, doing a proper warm-up, getting your body warm, doing some drills, and then getting on some technical trails, and you're going to go into these trails, and you're going to run down them. When you get to a corner, you're going to turn, you're going to accelerate for about 5 to 10 meters, then go back into your easier moderate pace. As soon as you hit the next turn, then you're going to accelerate again, 5-10 meters. You can do this as long as you'd like, from anywhere from 5 minutes to 20 minutes. It can be a great way to really start to build yourself up to adapt to speed changes throughout a race, because as we all know, it'd be nice to run races that were all the same pace, but they do change and fluctuate, and especially if you're trying to be someone that's pretty competitive, this can be a great workout for you. Key workout number 4 was using 150, 200 meter, 300 meter finishes at the end of a workout. So you're going to finish your workout, you're going to continue to stay warm, let your body recover though, let your heart rate come down, and then you're going to use maybe about 4 reps of 150 meters or 200 meters or 300 meters, choose your distance, but use about 3 to 4 reps of that, and you're going to be going a pretty quick effort. Again, it's very much a simulated finish type effort. focusing on good form, being really efficient, having your jaw relaxed, your shoulders down. All these things are going to build you to be a much more efficient runner at the end of your races. Tip number 5 was hill busters. Or key workout number 5 was hill busters. Hills can be a great tool in terms of building a much stronger runner over the course of time. And so what this workout is adding kind of a little bit of a speed element in there. You take maybe a hill that has a pretty good incline to it. You take about 50 meters of that hill, and what you're going to do is do kind of quick bursts up that hill. So you're basically doing a stride, but it's going to be up a hill, focusing on good form, not overstriding, keeping your stride within your box. But yeah, focusing on good form, staying relaxed, quick acceleration for about 50 meters. And then doing that anywhere from 4 to 8 times at the end of your runs. 4 to 8 repetitions at the end of a run. It can be a great tool to build that speed endurance. And then tip number 6, or key workout number 6, was progression runs. We've all known them, but it's a great way to build a strong runner for a long time. Starting out your runs really, really slow, and then building up and finishing your runs at a good clip. So all your splits, every single K, every single mile, you're going to be running just a little bit faster, but it's a real slow, gradual increase in pace, but it can be a great way to build a strong runner over time, and eventually that's going to lead to much faster, more efficient finishes at the end of your races. And then the last key workout was to be able to use races, as I've talked about before, in your favor. There's races I know here in the state of Washington. I know they're all over the U.S. They're called all-comer meets or open meets. What you're going to do is you're going to choose a distance. Those are track meets, so you're going to choose a distance on the track that's much shorter than what your goal distance is, and you're going to be able to use the speed of that race to get you to be better. Again, it's important to understand that these are much faster efforts, and getting on a track is going to be much easier than, say, running on the road or running on trail. So if you haven't done it before, make sure that you cautiously go into this race, understanding that your body is going to be subject to speeds that maybe you're not quite used to yet. So that's something that's important to understand when you do this, but it can be a really, really fun way to add kind of a speed element. Again, I always love using races as tools. You don't have to go into a race and give 100%. Just go into a race and knowing what you want out of that race. And so maybe that is just to get in a workout or get in a fun effort. You get in a fun environment. And then also there's a lot of different things you can simulate during a race that you can't always in a workout. So that was kind of the 7 tips for you guys. I hope that wasn't too long. Again, this was based on someone who had messaged me and said that they have a hard time finishing strong at the end of a race. They just don't seem to have it. Again, all 7 of those things can, when implemented correctly, can be a great way to be able to build a kick at the end of a race, so then you can be the runner blowing past everybody instead of the guy that gets blown past. So if you guys have any questions for me, please let me know. Just put them in the comments. Message me directly at Running Reimagined. Exciting stuff going on between Running Reimagined's reposting all these things on YouTube, so you can follow along there, and then also on Instagram. So fun stuff. If you guys have any questions, again, please let me know. But I hope you guys have a great day and some good runs. So take care.